everyone to the webcast today on Civil 3D and BIM Collaborate Pro, now with the new Sheet Set Manager tool. My name is Jatin, and I am the AEC Tech Consulting Lead here at BIM0. In this webinar, we will go through an introduction to the Autodesk Construction Cloud, an introduction to the BIM Collaborate Pro interface, some project administration actions in the cloud, the Civil 3D Cloud collaboration approach, and the new Sheet Set Manager for the web feature now available in Civil 3D and AutoCAD. Before we get to the main topics, just a brief overview of what BIM0 is and does. We are a solutions organization that fosters innovation through delivering software and hardware solutions, consulting, training, development, and managed services. We have become a trusted advisor to our clients due to the breadth and depth of our service offering and technical expertise, our commercial agility, and understanding of customer service. We have an excellent ANZ footprint with offices in large parts of Australia and New Zealand. We're actually one of the largest Autodesk partners in the world and considered by businesses we deal with to be a trusted advisor. We offer services such as data management, BIM implementation, consulting services, CAD management services, on-site and online training, and customized content creation. The majority of BIM0 A2K staff are from the industry, so we understand the challenges our clients face, and therefore we can deliver solutions through a combination of experience and innovation. Okay, now that we've gone through a couple of the intro slides, we can get to the meat of the webinar. So here's a quick agenda of what we'll be going through. So like I say, we'll first start off by understanding what the Autodesk Construction Cloud is. From there, we will grasp where the BIM Collaborate Pro offering fits into the Autodesk Construction Cloud platform and the features it provides to Civil 3D and your project as a whole, including the new Sheet Set Manager for the web feature. And then lastly, there'll be some Q&A at the end, and we'll close out. Okay, so before we talk about the Autodesk Construction Cloud, let's take a snapshot of how most projects are currently delivered at a high level. So one of the biggest problems we hear from our clients is this idea of having fragmented sources of truth between the different design teams that are involved in any particular project, right? So this leads to issues such as teams being disconnected and working from outdated information, due to different teams having multiple different design authoring tools, different revisions of drawings, and, being unable to exchange information easily or even consistently, or sometimes there's even a complete lack of digital adoption. And this leads to loads of wasted time and security issues, particularly around design IP. I don't want to send my entire design file over to someone else so that they can steal families, et cetera, et cetera. So this connection, or rather this disconnection between different teams also accounts for massive avoidable rework, including impacting project cost, quality, delivery time, and profitability. This actually has a massive impact at a business level as well, because you have all sorts of unused and lost project data, which is usually reducing potential opportunities such as portfolio visibility and being able to automate tasks, et cetera, et cetera. So the key solution to this issue is the implementation of what we call a common data environment, right? A single source of truth that everyone can work out of. So by incorporating a common data environment or a single source of truth into your projects, the information flows through a central repository where ideally it's much more easily controlled and up to date, right? So the CDE provides mechanisms to gate information flow so that design documents and other information such as your markups, your issues, are only available when appropriate, okay? So this CDE then is further supported by features such as control permissions, being able to search for documents, having an audit trail, being able to create markups, issue tracking, et cetera, You're able to incorporate naming standards, be able to set up revisions and create check, review, and approval workflows, and have that and all of that done in that single common data environment so everyone knows what's going on at all times. In this case, the CDE that we're talking about is the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So the Autodesk Construction Cloud is a unified platform that connects workflows, teams, and data at every stage of design and construction to reduce risk, maximize efficiency, and increase profits. So we can see here a graphic which broadly separates each stage of the design and construction lifecycle and what capabilities the ACC platform can provide at any said stage, right? So the best part about this platform for me is this idea that the entire project lifecycle can exist in that single common data environment, and different teams can leverage the capabilities of ACC in accordance with their role. So, for example, if you're a civil engineer, you would leverage the use of design collaboration or collaboration for Civil 3D to work with other consultants on a live model, okay? This same live model can then be accessed by a team involved in the cost management process. So you have all these different teams that are working together and coexisting in the single source of truth. So for the purposes of this webinar, we'll be focusing on ACC capabilities around design collaboration and coordination for Civil 3D. So this is where BIM Collaborate Pro comes into play, okay? So to summarize, the Autodesk Construction Cloud is the cloud-based CDE platform, and BIM Collaborate Pro, rather Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro, is the license in which you buy to have access to the design collaboration and coordination-based features within the Autodesk Construction Cloud. So if we put all of these features which are accessible through the BIM Collaborate Pro together in one place, it looks like the slide here. So broadly speaking, you can think of each square here as modules within the Autodesk Construction Cloud environment, and what modules you can access is dependent on the license you have. So for BIM Collaborate Pro, you have access to docs, design collaboration and collaboration for Civil 3D, and model coordination. Again, just for that collaboration for Civil 3D, there's some additional features here around being able to manage that Civil 3D project in the cloud, being able to create and consume data shortcuts, and some automated file locking as well. Okay, so let's see what this looks like in a live demo. Okay, so I'm going to jump into my Autodesk Construction Cloud environment. And I know this because at the top here, it says Autodesk Construction Cloud. Okay, and this is my project here. So I have a live demo project called ACC Demo Project Sandbox, which I like to use. And you can see here the different folders and subfolders that are currently in the module of docs. Okay, so if I click on this little product picker here, you can see here I've got all these different modules which are available to me. Okay, so we're talking about BIM Collaborate Pro today. So we're looking at docs and design collaboration. There is model coordination, which is part of BIM Collaborate Pro, but today for Civil 3D, we're going to be focusing on docs and design collaboration. Okay, again, that's going back to this module information from this slide. Okay, so this is my different modules here. These are my folders and my subfolders. So currently we're in docs. Okay, so within the docs module, we have quite a few different features. We have the ability to create what we call design workflows, be able to do transmittals, create issues, reporting, etc., etc. Okay, so if we wanted to create a project like this, all we'd have to do is go up here in that product picker and go over to account admin. Or if you end up on the splash page called acc.autodesk.com, there's a create project button up here as well. Now, an important thing to note is that if you want to access account admin or to create a project, you have to have, or rather you have to be an account admin in order to do so, okay? So you have to be an account admin in order to create a new project or access the account admin button. So if we click on account admin, we can see here the ability to create new members, be able to add in applications, be able to access our BIM 360, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you how to create a new project in the cloud. So if I click on create project, I can enter in a name. So I might just call this example project 1. I can give it a number if I want to. I would select what account I want to put this project under. So for you, it would just be your company name. Next, I would choose project type. So I only have to add in things that's been asterisked. Everything else is optional at this stage. So I might drop down and I might say, well, it's going to be a bridge project. Okay. And if I wanted to, I can select what we call a project template. So when we looked at our project before, so if I go to ACC demo project sandbox, if I head over to my docs, you can see here I've got all these folders and I've got subfolders. And if we look at any of these subfolders, like for example, I might go to civil and I might go to permission settings, and you can see I've set up some permissions and I've got all these subfolders. If I didn't want to do this from scratch and I wanted to create some form of a standardization so that every single time I'm creating a new project, I've got these folders and subfolders already, I can do that through creating what we call a project template and then selecting that project template so that when I create this new project, all those subfolders and folders and those permissions get added on automatically. Okay. So from here, I can give it an address, I can give it a time zone, I can enter a start and end date and give it a project value if I wanted to as well. So for today, I'm just going to say that's fine. I'm just going to create that project. So there's that project that gets created. Okay. So there's a couple things to note here first, right? So the first thing is that if we go to, we can see the name at the top here, example project. We can see here members, and under members, it's just myself. So the first person that gets added on is you as a person that's created this project. And if I click on this little drop down arrow, currently right now, there are no modules or no functionality that's been added on to the project, okay? So if I take a look at myself, I can see here the assigned products and permissions I have available. Okay, so I can turn on these modules. So today we're looking at docs and we're looking at design collaboration. And you can see here that these modules start to turn on. Okay, once they've been turned on, if I click on that product picker again, you can see they're now available. Okay, and I can go into any of these. I can go into docs, I can go into design collaboration, and I can start setting those up. And if I wanted to, I can start adding members onto projects as well. Okay, so that's a little bit around how to create a new project and some administration around that front. So once you've started to flesh out your project a little bit more, you'll start to add in these folders and subfolders. In order to create a new folder or subfolder, you just need to click on these three little dots here. And you can just click on add subfolder, which will add another subfolder on, and you can continue to upload files, etc., etc. Now, from a permissions perspective, for example, if I go on to the civil discipline, if I go to permission settings, I've got that open here. So you can select, you can hit this add button here, and you can either enter in names, email addresses, roles, or companies, and you can give them a permission level. So it starts from the very bottom, which is just being able to view files, and it goes to the very top, which is full administrative controls. But it's full administrative controls for this particular folder, okay? And any subfolders that are underneath that parent folder. So this way, if you're part of the architectural team, you'd only see whatever you were involved in from an architectural standpoint. If you wouldn't be able to see the civil folder, et cetera, et cetera. So the idea is that everyone's working off this one common data environment, but they've only got access to the folders that they're involved in. Okay. A couple more quick things that you can do on this area. If we move over to the civil area here, if I click on DWG, for example, I have the ability to be able to view any of these files in the cloud environment itself. There is version control, which we talked about. So you can see here that this platform and pipes design is up to version 10. So if I click on this versioning, you can see that it started from 8th of September 2022, and it's moved along now to the 16th of March 2023. And it's a kept track of every single time this version had changed. Okay, and at any point, if I've made a mistake and I need to go back in terms of versioning, I can make any previous version, I can make them current, I can download the source file, I can take a copy of that particular version. And what I can also do is that I can actually compare versions, which I find is a very, very cool tool. So I might say, well, I want to compare version 10 compared to version 7 of this particular drawing. And I'm going to hit the compare button over here. And I'm going to say, well, I want to take a look at perhaps sheet 6 of these two, document A and document B. Now, if I hit this compare button, the system is going to think about it, and it's going to gray everything else out and only show me what is the particular difference between the two versions. So version 7 is in blue and version 10 is in red. So I can see here in version 7, we have this particular pipe. It's no longer available in version 10. Another way that you can look at this, other than the comparison tool, is the side-by-side comparison. I quite like this because you can see the difference when you're sliding across the little line. Okay, so this is version 10, this is version 7. So in version 7, this pipe was available. And now if I scroll across, you'll see that pipe disappear. And I can scroll out as well, obviously. Okay, so those are some cool things that you can do. It works not just for your DWGs, but for your PDFs, et cetera, et cetera. And actually talking about PDF, if I open up this PDF, there's a couple of cool things that you can do here. Okay, so I've got this PDF here. It's just an example PDF. If I wanted to, in this docs environment, I can start doing some markup. So I can draw on this, I can create shapes, I can add text, I can create cloud markups if I wanted to. Okay, I can create issues, right? So if there's a particular issue in this PDF, I can create one and assign it to the appropriate team member, et cetera, et cetera. So all of this is available, and there's that compare button here. So all this is available in this docs module. Okay. And including, and this is available within BIM Collaborate Pro, but if you have AEC collections, you actually have access to docs already. So if you have a license called AEC collections in your portfolio of products, you can actually leverage docs immediately. So if you haven't already accessed this, I would recommend that you take a look because it's in your software solution stack. Okay, so that's a nice little high-level overview of the Autodesk Construction Cloud and BIM Collaborate Pro. Now, if we do a deeper dive into how Civil 3D works in this ACC space in terms of collaboration, the idea is that you can access these Civil 3D projects anywhere, anytime, provided that you have the right permissions. And so not only that, you can also go through a controlled workflow of sharing informations between the other external consultants through the design collaboration module. Okay, so let's see what that looks like in terms of a live demo. So if I jump back, this is my docs environment. We're already kind of aware of this now. What the module we're going to be using is this design collaboration module here. So first things first, I'm just going to show you how you can bring your DWG file into this cloud. It's fairly straightforward. You have two methods, okay? The first method is a drag and drop. So I can take this DWG and I can just drag it across and it will start to upload. Or what you can also do is open up your Civil 3D and leverage something that we call Autodesk Docs. Okay, so if you have Civil 3D, then provided it's past version 2021, 2022, you have access to this Docs button over here. Okay, so if you have access to this, you can click on this Docs button. You can go to your account, go to the project that you're involved in, and it's going to mimic your entire folder structure. So you can see here the folder structure I have is replicating the folder structure that I have access to in this Docs environment here. So what I want to do is I want to go into work in progress. I want to go into Civil, into DWG, and I want to open up this file here, this platform and pipes design file. So if I go to Civil 3D, I'm going to go work in progress. I'm going to go Civil. I'm going to go DWG. And I'm going to go into platforms and pipes design. Now, if you're having a hard time seeing all this and you're like, hey, I haven't got the same connection, make sure you install an application called the Autodesk Desktop Connector. Okay, the Autodesk Desktop Connector is the app that you have to install in order to connect your local desktop to this cloud environment. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up this file. So once I click on it, will take a couple of seconds and it will check for the latest version, go through, and it will open up my file. I'm just going to take no action here. Okay, I've got my file here. Now, there's a couple things to note very quickly about this. If I click on the Start button again, actually, I might just see if I can load it up here. There we go. So over here, you notice that there's a little lock button that opens up, right? So when I've opened this file, it's noted that someone is now working on this DWG file. So because someone is working on this DWG file, it's locked it and it tells you by who that it's being locked at what date and what time. And no one else is able to jump in here and make edits, right? Because I'm the one that's holding this file. Okay, so that's an important thing to note. So from here, if this was just a desktop file for now and I wanted to push it to the cloud, all I would do is I would just go up to the very top. I would go save as, I would save this drawing. I'd click on this Autodesk Docs widget, go into my particular account, go into the project. So this is my project here. You can see here I've got all my folders, subfolders exactly like what you see in ACC. Go into Civil, maybe go into DWG, and I would just save this file straight into this environment. Okay, so you either have the drag and drop method, or you have saving it from Civil 3D itself. If you're wanting to save some of the sheets specifically, what you can do is you can go up here to Collaborate, and there's a button here called Push to Autodesk Docs. Okay, we actually talked a lot more around this in our previous webinar called Civil 3D and BIM Collaborate Pro. It was by Dean Peterson, so feel free to check that out if you want a little bit more information. And just as a handy tip as well, since we're talking about this, if you're working with external consultants that are using a platform called Revit and you're working with them around services, there's actually a button here called Publish Services, where you can go from Civil 3D to Docs, and people that are using Revit can pick up that surface in a native fashion. Again, we talk about that in the previous webinar, so just get in touch if you want to learn more. So obviously this is locked right now. If I go back here and I close this file, okay, and I just refresh this, you can see that that lock option disappears. Okay, so because no one's working on that file. So once you have your file uploaded into the appropriate folder, we can move on to the design collaboration module. Okay, I'm just going to open this as a separate tab because I want to explain how this workflow goes. So you've uploaded your file to the cloud, and that's great, and you have it under your appropriate subfolder. What happens is that in this design collaboration area, this is where you're collaborating with all of your external consultants. So each team, so your mechanical, your civil, architecture, structure, and services is connected to their appropriate work in progress folder. So architecture, services, mechanical, structure, civil, et cetera, right? So what the system is doing is that if I click on civil, it's going in and it's going and picking up all of your DWG files that's located in the civil folder. If I was to take a look at architecture, for example, it's going in to take a look at the models that are in architecture. So there's some Revit models in the architecture tab, and that's what the system's picking up. Okay, so what you can do is that if I'm civil, I can start taking a look at some of these timeline symbols here. Now, if you've used BIM 360 before in the past, then these timeline symbols work exactly the same way. But each timeline symbol denotes what the different teams have been doing in the background. Okay, so for example, I can see that architecture has consumed a DWG file today. I can see that the services team had actually shared a model on the 22nd of April in 2021, and structure they shared a model on the 22nd of April as well in 2021. Okay, so it gives you a snapshot of how all the different teams are working together. So we have our file. If I go to civil, we can see our files over here. If I want to share my file with the rest of the team members without them jumping into my folder, so I don't want them to jump into my folder, they haven't got access to it, but I want to share when I'm ready, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this plus button over here called Create a New Package. Okay, I'm going to select the model in which I'm interested in. So this is my surfaces model here. Excuse me, my pipes and platform design model. Now, if you have references to your DWG file, it denotes it here, saying this model has references, and those references will not be shared, right? So only the DWG gets shared, not its associated references. There are some workflows around this, so if you want to learn a little bit more, just get in touch with us after the webinar. Okay, so we can select our file, say, yep, this is the file I want to share, and you can hit the save button. And when you hit the save button, you've created what we call a package. Okay, so if we look at our timeline symbol, we can see over here a little circle that says, yep, a package that got created. Now at this point, so this is a common support issue that we get, because we get a lot of clients that say, hey, I've created a package, but no one else can see it, and no one else can do anything with it. So it's not until you hit the share button that it becomes available for all the other teams to take a look at. Until then, it's only your file. And there's a couple of things that you can do in here just to make your life a little bit easier. One of them is this compare tool. And what the compare tool does here is that it actually visualizes changes between the different versions. So if I hit this compare button, and I want to say, well, I want to know the difference between, let's just say, for example, like version 1 and version 10. There's 7 changes that have been made, okay, since the first time that it got uploaded till now when I'm sharing. So if I hit show changes, it's going to tell me very quickly what are the components that have been modified, what are the components that have been deleted. Okay, so if I look at, for example, the deleted ones, I can see here there was a pipe network that's been deleted, as well as a node here that's been deleted as well. So at a very high level, if you're, someone more like a BIM manager rather than the daily production work, and you wanted to just double check if what you were sharing was appropriate in terms of, what's the update from the last time you shared, you could just click on this compare tool and visualize changes. So you can see here between version 9 and version 10, there were no changes. So the question is, well, then why are we sharing this model, right? But once you've done through all these changes and you're happy with the model that you want to share, you can just hit the share button here. So when you hit the share button, you can give it the package a name, you can give it a description, and you can hit the share button. So when you hit the share button, it's going to go ahead and it's going to share the package. Now, this is the cool thing, right? So right now we've uploaded our file and then we've shared it in this platform. So let's say I'm part of the structure team. Okay, I'm part of the structure team. I can see that if I look at the civil discipline, they shared, I can see that they shared a model here today at whatever time, today at, let's say, 2:30. Okay. What happens is a copy of the civil file actually ends up, if you set it up correctly, in this shared folder over here. So a copy of the file that was in work in progress under civil. So this file here, a copy of this file has made its way into the shared folder here automatically under civil. So this file here that you see under shared is a copy of this file here under work in progress that you've decided to share. What that means is that the structure team, let's say I'm part of the structure team, I can actually take a look at this file. I can do my comparison, okay, just to see what they're comparing, see if there's any changes. And I can do all this before I bring it into my folder, so my structure folder here. And it ends up in this consumed folder. Okay, so right now we don't have a civil folder, which will populate in just a second. So if I've taken a look at this file and everything's all good, and yep, it's all good, I want to hit this consume button. When you hit this consume button, it's going to say, yep, you're about to consume this package. It's going to bring it into your team space. So it's going to bring it into your structure folder space and this consumed area, and update any Revit links, etc., and any references, etc., etc. So if we hit this consume button, you can see that, yep, we've consumed it. And now you can see that civil folder being created. So now what happens is the structure team has got access or direct access to this DWG that they can link in through their Revit model, etc., right? So by using this workflow in design collaboration, no team is having to move away from their folder, from their respective folder. So as a civil person, I didn't need to go into structure, and as a structure person, I didn't need to go into civil in order to grab the civil file. Okay, that's the idea around this control permissions and this publish and consume workflow. Now, one of the things that we get asked as well is the idea that, well, how can I quickly know, what are the changes that are happening between all these different models that are being consumed and shared, etc., etc. There is a feature in design collaboration called changes. Okay, so what in changes here, one of the things you can do, you can create what's called a new watch group. So what that means is that you can say, I want to keep track of this file here. And what I want to do is I want to keep track of specific parts of this file. Okay, and you can choose different things so that when they change, you actually get a notification on it. So for example, I might say, I want to know if any of these fittings have changed. I want to know if perhaps this pipe network has changed. So I can create this watch group and I can give it a name. So I might just go example watch group and I can hit save. And I've got that here, this example watch group. So anytime there is a change to those particular elements, I'll get a notification. And you can see here, I've got some notifications coming from arc walls and floors and structural walls and columns. Okay, so this is another easy way of how you can keep track of the different models, whether it's DWG or whether it's Revit, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. So that's a little bit around the design collaboration piece and how that connects to the docs environment. Okay. And again, if you need help with any of the setup, because there is a setup process that you have to do, just feel free to get in touch and we'll be more than happy to help you out. There's special mentions around permissions, et cetera, that you will need to make sure that you get right. Okay, so now let's talk about this new feature known as Sheet Set Manager for the web. Okay, so I like to call it the little brother of the traditional SSM feature that you're used to in your Civil 3D, so the traditional Sheet Set Manager. So please bear in mind that it's a lightweight version, right? So the Sheet Set Manager for the web is a lightweight version, and there's a couple of key features that you can utilize with the web version. Okay, so you can't do everything that you can normally do in your traditional one. There's only selective things you can do in the Sheet Set Manager for the web. Okay, the first one is the controlled editing of sheet sets. Okay, and I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. The ability to publish directly to docs as a PDF, being able to e-transmit sheets directly to the Autodesk docs area, and also creating a DST file that remains in the cloud. So for anyone that's unaware, a DST file is the sheet set file name, and that basically remains in the cloud so that multiple users can load the same set and access those reference files. Okay, so this is the new feature, and these are the key things about that feature that you should be aware. Before we get into the demo, this is just a word of caution. For this new feature to work, you will need to have some key requirements, okay? So if you're using AutoCAD, so if you're using AutoCAD instead of Civil 3D, then you need AutoCAD 2023.1. If you're using Civil 3D, then you need Civil 3D 2023.1 version, okay? So as far as I'm aware, this feature is not available for any of the past versions, right? It's only 2023.1 and onwards, okay? And you need at least a version 15.8.0.1827 version when it pertains to with the Autodesk desktop connector. So when you're downloading and installing the Autodesk desktop connector, just make sure that you're past this version, okay? So if you have all these components, then it will work just fine. If you need help deciding, or figuring out what version you're on, you're not quite sure, you need help, just like I say, get in touch with us. So let's go through a live demo of this, okay? So I'm going to just refresh that so that I've got so again, remember, we can leverage the Autodesk docs. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show you where I'm actually going here in the civil area. So I'm leveraging this civil area here. You can see I've got some data shortcuts. I've got sheets, PDFs, templates, etc., etc. And I'm going here into GWG. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and open up platform and pipes design. And again, it's fairly quick, so I'm pretty comfortable with closing and opening this over and over again. Again, when I've opened it, just as a quick reminder, if I go to DWG, you can see here, there's this lock button. Since I'm here, here's another quick tip for you. Sometimes when you close Civil 3D or you close the file, sometimes because of internet issues or someone leaves their Civil 3D on their computer all day, or, these things happen, right? And you'll see this locked symbol, but you know for a fact that that person is no longer using it. It should be unlocked. What you can do is you can click on this. You can click on this little square here next to the file name. Click on these three little dots and hit the unlock option. Okay, and it will boot them out of the file and it will unlock it. Now, you need special permission for this, so your normal users can't just go in and do this every time. You do need special permission, so you don't have to worry that people are constantly kicking each other out. There is some form of a control permission around this. So I've got my Civil 3D file. That's all good, and I've created some view frames. I've just created an example view frame group called Platform and Pipes. I'm sure you guys know how to create view frames. If you don't know how to create view frames, please get in touch with us, and we'll be happy to walk you through on how to accomplish that. So I've got some view frames here, and obviously there's a couple different ways to invoke that sheet set manager. But for me, I really like right clicking, so I'm just going to right click on Platform and Pipes, and I'm going to click on Create Sheets. Okay, so from here, I can select the view frame group and output settings. So I've given this a name. I can select whether, I'm going to choose the entire view frame range or just a particular selection. I can select the layout creation. So the number of layout drawings. Am I going to create a new drawing for each layout? Am I going to have all layouts in one new drawing, or all layouts in the current drawing? One of the cool things you can do, which I'll show you in a second when sheet set, is that if you choose all layouts in one new drawing, you can actually place that new drawing in your designated subfolder. So I've got one here on Sheets, and you can see here that I've actually added that DST file into that Sheets. So this is a pretty nice option if you're wanting to, have a bit more organization around your folders, subfolders, and files. So I'm going to select that. You can give it a name if you want to, choose North Arrow if it's relevant. If you've developed your Civil 3D where you have particular standards, all this would just kind of use your particular standards. So this is pretty out of the box for now. So we can give the new sheet set a name. So I've just named it Platform and Pipes, which is fine. Or you can choose to add it to an existing sheet set. Okay, so you can either create a new one, like I say, and add it to any one of your subfolders in the cloud, or you can add it to an existing one into the cloud as well. Now, this is the cool part here, the sheet set storage location. Okay, so normally, if you didn't have the cloud, this would be, somewhere in your shared drive or your desktop, etc., etc. But if I click on these three little dots, I can actually leverage, sorry, I just brought it up here, this Autodesk Docs button here. So this is how you know you've set it up right. If I look at it, I can see that it's going through my Autodesk Docs, it's going through my Vin0, it's going through my demo project. I can choose project files, I can choose work in progress, civil, and I can go sheets, and I can just place it in here in sheets, okay? The same thing for the sheet file storage location. I can choose where I want that, and I can leverage the Autodesk Docs option. So everything now is getting placed into the cloud rather than your, your desktop or your shared drive. So it's being made available here. Okay. You can give it a name, etc., etc. You can set up some profile views, so you can use the typical ANZ standards, align it, you go through all the settings. This is pretty standard. So if you've already a user of Civil 3D, it should be fairly clear. And lastly, around data references, it will go and start to utilize a lot of your data references as well. If you do have references to the cloud, it will take hold of those references, providing that you've created it in data shortcuts. Okay, and then when you're done, you would just hit the Create Sheets button. Okay, so once you do create sheets, it will look something like this. So I'm going to open up my existing one. So I'm going to open up my sheet set manager, and I might just choose the existing one that I have here in the cloud. Sorry, it does take a couple of seconds for it to load. So what I've opened here is this DST file here. And do you notice that little lock? So this is what I meant when earlier we talked about, if I bring up that slide, that controlled editing of sheet sets. In the Civil 3D, when I've opened it up in the cloud, it's locked it. So just like it did with the DWG. Okay, so from here, I can go ahead and you can see that sheet set data file is going straight into the cloud environment. I can start to leverage this sheet set manager for the web. So we talked about a couple of key features in here, right? So the controlled editing, which I've just shown you a second ago. Next is publishing directly to docs as a PDF. So I've got this example sheet here. I mean, I can right click on this and I can click on publish to, sorry, I'm just gonna, there we go. I can go publish to PDF. So when I click on this publish to PDF, that example sheet ends up in the appropriate folder that I choose. So for example, I published it here in the platform and pipes area under my PDFs. Okay. The next thing that you can do is e-transmit, right? So you can create that e-transmittal straight to Autodesk Docs, and it comes through as a zip file. I believe I've just put it under Sheets. So that's that platform and pipe design. So you have that zip file here, which you can just download. Okay. So again, like I say, you can't do everything that you can normally do in your sheet set manager. So the one for the web is lightweight. So the key features again is just being able to publish the PDF straight to the cloud, being able to create e-transmittal straight to the cloud. And if you want to do some renaming and renumbering, et cetera, you can do so. Okay. Just as a special mention, some people sometimes aren't sure whether or not their BIM Collaborate Pro is working with their Civil 3D, or, you know, there's some weird stuff that's happening in the background and they're not quite sure. A very easy way to check, and a really good way you can do it, you know, quickly, is you can right click on data shortcuts and click on set working folder. When you click on set working folder, the system actually goes to check if you have a BIM Collaborate Pro license. And if you do, it'll actually come up with your, you know, through your Autodesk docs, and it'll go through, find your work in progress and your civil folder, et cetera, et cetera. If you didn't have a license, it would just say, sorry, you don't have a license, you don't have privileges. This is also the set working folder and setting the data shortcuts. This is how you would go through the process of creating those data shortcuts in the cloud. So you can see I'm able to access those shortcuts directly, and I can start to create references, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Awesome. So that was a little bit around the sheet set manager. Before we get into questions, just a couple of best practices to follow if you want to start incorporating ACC into your Civil 3D workflow. Make sure you upload the resources first before you upload the design file. So what I mean by that is in like, for example, my civil file, make sure you set up your DST files and any references, et cetera, before you go ahead and you create your DWGs, right? Because it'll be much easier for you in terms of data shortcuts to get that up and running. And speaking of data shortcuts, make sure you use relative paths, not absolute paths. That will make your life a lot easier. If you need more understanding of that, just let us know after the webinar and we'll be happy to sit down with you. Make sure you keep your products up to date. I can't emphasize that enough. This is a new feature. Like I said, it's only available from 2023 onwards. So make sure you keep up to date, not just in your Civil 3D, but your desktop connector as well. If your desktop connector requires an update, the system will tell you. So you'll see a notification pop up on the lower right-hand side of your screen if there's a new version of the desktop connector. Okay. Make sure you create shared CAD resources in the designated project folder first, before you, just like uploading resources, make sure you create all those standards first before you go ahead and upload your file. And there's a really good AU 2020 presentation called Moving On Up to BIM 360, Migrate an Existing Civil 3D Project to the Cloud. That's a really good, I know it says BIM 360, but it works in a similar fashion to ACC. It's a really good presentation if you want to understand, like if you already have a Civil 3D project that's up and running and you want to migrate that to the cloud, how you go about that. We're also planning a webinar on this very soon. So if you can't find it, don't worry, we're organizing a webinar to go through this workflow again as well.